Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
There's a kind of strength that doesn't roar. It doesn't show up in the gym. It's not loud in conversations. You won't find it in how someone dresses or how many eyes they attract. This strength lives quietly inside. It shows up when temptation calls and you don't answer, when drama invites and you don't attend, when you could lash out but choose calm. Most people confuse stillness for passivity. They think the quiet man has nothing to say. They think he's afraid. What they don't see is what he's choosing to protect. There's something sacred inside him, and unlike most, he's not willing to trade it for cheap victories or surface approval. That kind of power doesn't need to announce itself. It just walks in, and the room adjusts. Life keeps trying to pull you into battles that don't matter, arguments that go nowhere, roles you never asked to play. People throw their weight around to test what you're made of, not because they care, but because they need distraction. And if you're not careful, they'll drag you out of yourself. They'll get you to waste your energy proving things that never needed proof. But there's a better way. You don't need to answer every challenge. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to clap back just to stay relevant. Protecting your center means knowing when to walk away and meaning it. Not as a retreat, but as a decision. Not everything deserves your presence. Not everyone deserves a reaction. When you stop reacting to everything, you gain control over what shapes you. That's where everything begins, in the small moments no one sees. When you choose not to chase the argument, when you choose not to scroll for 2 more hours, when you feel anger rising and let it burn itself out without burning everything down with it. Most think this kind of self-control is boring, but that boredom is peace, and that peace is the birthplace of clarity. Because you can't create anything meaningful if you're always at the mercy of external noise. You can't grow if every emotion drags you around. You have to hold steady, not to impress anyone, but because the version of you on the other side of discipline is waiting. There will be days when nothing makes sense. People you trusted will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. You'll question everything you've been building. In those moments, your thoughts will spiral. Your emotions will scream for attention. You'll feel like quitting, just to feel something else. That's when it matters most. That's when your real foundation is revealed. Anyone can stay calm when everything is easy. The test is whether you can stay grounded when it's not. Not numb, not fake, but present, aware, collected. That's what separates the ones who rise from the ones who fold. When it's all falling apart on the outside, can you still hold the line on the inside? You don't need to win every battle to build something powerful. You just need to stop bleeding energy into the wrong things. Too many people waste their best years fighting fights that don't build them, defending ideas that don't matter, seeking praise from people who aren't even proud of themselves. That's how you lose your way. You get so caught up in proving you're valuable that you forget to protect the parts of you that are. Every time you engage with something beneath you, you hand over a little piece of your direction. Keep doing that, and soon you're a stranger to your own goals. Being calm is not a weakness. Being quiet is not the same as being uncertain. Some of the most powerful decisions are made in silence, not out of fear, but out of focus. The loudest person in the room is often the most lost. The calm one, he's watching, listening, not because he doesn't have anything to say, but because he knows exactly when to say it. Timing matters, intent matters, and when your sense of self is stable, you don't rush, you don't panic, you let things unfold. Because you're not playing to win the moment, You're playing to shape the outcome. People will test you just to see if they still have access to the version of you that used to overreact. When you don't respond, they'll push harder. When you don't fold, they'll call you different. And you are. Growth feels like distance to those who want you small. That's okay. You don't owe anyone the previous version of yourself. You don't have to go back to being agreeable just to keep peace. Peace isn't given, it's built, and it's protected by limits. If you want to keep your focus, your direction, your clarity, you have to stop apologizing for being unavailable to nonsense. There's power in being unavailable, in making your presence rare, not out of arrogance, but intention. You start treating your time and energy like a currency. You stop saying yes just to avoid awkwardness. You stop explaining your boundaries like they need approval. People will notice. Some will pull away. That's not a loss. It's alignment. Every time you say no to what drains you, you say yes to the future you're building. And you can't build anything worthwhile if you're constantly distracted by everything that doesn't matter. So the question isn't, how do I become powerful? It's, how do I stop giving away my power for nothing? Every argument, every distraction, every pointless scroll, every insecure chase for validation, it adds up, bit by bit. You trade your long-term focus for short-term comfort. But when you start choosing what matters, every day, every hour, you begin to build something real, something you can trust, something that lasts. And when your life is built on intention, you stop being reactive. You stop being confused. You stop being led by whatever pulls the hardest. You move with direction. Greatness doesn't emerge from noise. It doesn't spark in the middle of constant interaction, nor does it bloom under the artificial light of groupthink. It demands isolation, raw, uncomfortable, often misunderstood solitude, not to escape people, but to escape interference. If you want to build something rare, you have to become rare. That means vanishing, not as an act of retreat, but of incubation. The mind can't invent if it's constantly interrupted. The soul can't speak if it's always spoken over. You need space, space to think, to wander, to let silence stretch long enough for your deeper voice to rise. Most never hear that voice. They're too busy replying, reacting, consuming. But those who create, those who reshape reality, they go missing for a while. They disappear from conversations. They don't post updates. They walk alone, not because they're lost, but because the path forward requires a level of inner clarity the crowd can never offer. You live in a time where solitude is considered suspicious. If you're not constantly available, you're questioned. If you don't respond within minutes, people panic. But your greatest ideas, the ones that would move the needle of your life, don't arrive through urgency. They arrive through absence. Absence of pressure, absence of input, absence of performance. There is a process happening beneath your awareness, in the depths of your subconscious, where pieces are connecting that you don't even realize you picked up. But that process gets blocked when every second is filled. Scroll, talk, swipe, reply. Listen, watch, repeat. There's no room left. The genius you're looking for isn't missing. It's being crowded out. The mind doesn't thrive under constant attention. It thrives under intentional neglect. Give it time to roam. Let it breathe in silence. Let boredom stretch. Most people treat boredom like a flaw. They run from it. But boredom is the space just before a breakthrough. It's the gateway to a deeper layer of thought that can't be reached through constant stimulation. Silence doesn't just give your mind a break, it gives it power. And when that power compounds, when it simmers undisturbed, it begins to unlock parts of you that were always there but never heard. That is not a luxury. That is a requirement for greatness, but only those who understand the long game dare to give themselves that kind of time. Great thinkers disappear often, not out of depression, but devotion. Their absence is not a sign of weakness. It's a commitment to becoming someone new. There's something about being away from everyone that shows you who you actually are. You strip away the audience, and suddenly the performance dies. Then you're left with what's real, what remains. And that's where the next chapter begins. You don't need more voices telling you what to do. You don't need more content. You need silence. You need to get away from people, not because they're bad, but because you need to hear you. The next level of your life requires answers no one else can give you. They'll call it antisocial, cold, detached. Let them. Most people are terrified of themselves. They use others as insulation. Constant input becomes a survival mechanism, because in silence the truth speaks. And not everyone is ready for what it says. But you say you want to create. You say you want to do things that live beyond your lifetime. That's going to cost you your addiction to noise. You're going to have to become someone who honors emptiness, who chooses stillness like a ritual, who doesn't fear long days alone, because they know the gold is buried under the stillness. The best decisions you'll ever make won't come after a group brainstorm. They'll come after you've sat alone for long enough that the clutter clears. When the fog lifts, when your heartbeat slows, when you finally separate your own voice from the hundreds you've absorbed. That's when real clarity emerges. That's when alignment returns. You suddenly remember what matters, not what gets attention, but what builds. That shift can only happen in stillness. Stillness is the workshop of destiny. It's the ground where the future is forged. And if you don't protect that space, you're leaving the blueprint of your life in the hands of chaos. Everyone's busy. That's the excuse. That's the shield. But busy doesn't mean productive. Busy often means distracted. It means spinning the wheel without ever going anywhere. Most people spend their entire lives reacting and call it momentum. But if you slow down with intent, you'll move further in a month than they will in a year. Silence is the accelerator, but only for the one brave enough to sit in it without reaching for escape. That bravery, that stillness, that is what separates those who produce from those who consume. You're not being lazy when you take time away. You're being strategic. You're not avoiding people. You're resetting your frame. And when you return, you don't return confused. You return surgical, focused, unshakable. That is the benefit of disconnecting. Not to isolate forever, but to sharpen your edge. You become the man who doesn't just guard his mood, but his mental bandwidth. And in guarding that, you reclaim your direction. You stop drifting. You start building. Your subconscious is not a machine you can program by force. It requires space, repetition, depth. The most meaningful insights don't come when you demand them. They arrive when you prepare the ground. Time alone isn't wasted, it's invested. It's a reset only a few are willing to endure. And in a world full of people chasing shortcuts, it becomes your edge. The man who can sit with his own thoughts, without panicking, without numbing, without needing noise, is rare. And because he's rare, his work becomes rare. His vision becomes sharp. His decisions become precise. That's not luck, that's the reward of solitude. Real learning demands discomfort. It is not supposed to entertain you. It's supposed to confront you. Everyone talks about learning like it's this light, but the truth is far uglier. Real learning begins where your ego ends. It starts when you feel resistance, when your habits fight back, when your pride begins to squirm. You don't learn through memorizing formulas and repeating phrases. You learn through friction. You learn when your beliefs get challenged so hard they crack. You learn when your image of yourself no longer survives under scrutiny. But most people want learning to feel good. They want knowledge to stroke their self-image, not shatter it. That's why they stay the same. They collect facts, never wisdom. You can't skip yourself and call it growth. You can't pour knowledge into a vessel that's filled with delusion and call it education. The most important knowledge you'll ever acquire is about your own nature. Not the image you show the world, the truth you hide from it, the parts of you you've disguised, polished, performed. Until you bring those to light, every other form of knowledge becomes decoration. It doesn't change you, it distracts you. Self-learning means pulling up every root, inspecting every motive, questioning your own reactions. You think you know yourself until you start asking real questions. Why do I need attention? Why do I shut down when I'm challenged? Why do I crave comfort but envy those who risk everything? That's where the learning begins. You've been taught to equate learning with achievement, good grades, fancy words, nods of approval. But real learning doesn't hand out applause. It punishes assumptions. It humiliates arrogance. It forces you to unlearn before it allows you to build. No one warns you that self-awareness feels like betrayal. When you finally see yourself clearly, parts of you won't survive. The lies you told to cope, the identities you wore to belong, the excuses you memorized and performed on loop. You'll grieve those parts. But they had to go. Because the version of you that guards his future can't rely on falsehoods for shelter. People avoid inner learning because the cost feels too high. They'd rather master a skill than face their reflection. It's safer to read 100 books than sit in silence and confront your own patterns. But every external obsession that doesn't begin with internal investigation becomes empty noise. You can build an empire, but if the one building it is fragmented, everything you create carries that fracture. The most dangerous thing about ignorance is that it hides in plain sight. It hides behind business, behind ambition, behind all the things that look like growth, but are just polished avoidance. You were taught that learning is about information, but information without introspection is a trap. You can memorize every law of psychology and still not know why you sabotage your own momentum. You can study power dynamics and still feel powerless. You can quote philosophers and still run from your own silence. Because knowledge doesn't change you, ownership does. And you don't own what you haven't faced. You don't own what you keep explaining away. Learning about yourself means giving up the privilege of ignorance. It means letting go of blame. You stop pointing outward. You turn the blade inward. The truth will not flatter you. It will not make you feel good. It will wreck you. It will expose your softness, your envy, your projections. It will show you how many of your habits are self-harm dressed in routine. But after the wreckage, if you stay long enough, it will show you something else. What you could be if you stopped running. What you could become if you stopped seeking to be understood and started seeking to be rebuilt. That's why learning is sacred. Not because it fills you, because it empties you of illusion. This is why most people never change. They wait for lessons that feel easy. They look for truths that confirm their image. And the moment something challenges them, they call it negative. Call it toxic. Call it wrong. They mistake pain for danger. But not all pain is harm. Some pain is surgery. And until you allow that surgery, the parts of you that are rotting will never heal. You'll cover them in language. You'll dress them in personality. But they'll keep leaking into everything you do. Real learning is the decision to stop leaking. Self-knowledge is the foundation of everything. You want better relationships. Start with how you manipulate to avoid being vulnerable. You want clarity in your mission. Start with why you need recognition to feel valuable. You want peace. Start with why you stir conflict when things feel too calm. Most problems in your life are not external. They are projections of the parts of yourself you refuse to examine. You won't fix them with effort. You'll fix them with honesty. Brutal, unforgiving, unflinching honesty. And that requires silence. Not the kind where you wait for your turn to speak. The kind where you stop lying to yourself. No one can teach you who you are. That journey is solo. It doesn't come with likes. It doesn't come with a certificate. It comes with nights where your thoughts feel louder than any crowd. It comes with mornings where you feel reborn, but not celebrated. You'll walk through that process alone, and most will never see the difference. That's okay. The ones who rebuild themselves in secret carry a power the world will never understand, a depth that doesn't need to perform. That's how you guard the life you're building, by learning the one who's building it. Discipline does not fail you. Your surroundings do. You keep placing yourself inside rooms designed to defeat restraint, then you act surprised when restraint collapses. You sit where distraction is rewarded, where impulses are fed, where comfort waits within arm's reach, and you ask yourself why resolve never survives the day. This has nothing to do with willpower. Willpower burns out. Environment decides outcomes long before effort enters the picture. Every space you step into is shaping you, training you, nudging you toward a pattern. When the pattern rewards indulgence, indulgence becomes normal. When the pattern rewards focus, focus becomes effortless. Most people never notice this because they romanticize discipline as a moral trait rather than a structural one. They believe control should emerge from force. It does not. Control emerges from design. The rooms you choose decide the man you become. Look closely at your daily landscape, the sounds you allow, the screens that glow, the people who linger. None of it is neutral. Every detail is a lever pulling behavior in one direction or another. When you surround yourself with shortcuts, comfort becomes the default response. When you surround yourself with friction, growth becomes unavoidable. The problem is not that discipline feels hard. The problem is that you keep living inside systems that reward collapse. Then you label yourself flawed. That lie keeps you stuck. Remove the lie and the path clears. You do not need more motivation. You need fewer temptations. You need to stop giving weakness a stage and then wondering why it performs. Most men attempt to fix behavior while refusing to change context. They promise themselves control while staying close to the trigger. They swear tomorrow will be different while keeping yesterday's habits alive. That approach never works. Discipline grows when options shrink. Remove the escape routes and focus appears. Remove the noise and thought deepens. Remove the comfort and capability rises. The mind follows the path of least resistance. If that path leads to distraction, distraction becomes destiny. If that path leads to effort, effort becomes identity. You shape the path or the path shapes you. Every undisciplined act has a location, a time, a setting. Rarely does collapse arrive randomly. It shows up in familiar places, late nights, feeds, empty conversations, environments that demand nothing from you. Those spaces train you to delay, to drift, to avoid. Then you carry that training into moments that require precision. The result feels like failure. It is not failure. It is conditioning. And conditioning can be reversed the moment you take responsibility for where you place yourself. Change the room and the man changes with it. The disciplined man does not rely on constant self-control. He removes decisions. He designs his days so discipline becomes the natural outcome rather than the heroic effort. He knows the cost of exposure. He knows that proximity breeds permission. So he limits access. He reduces choice. He builds walls where others seek freedom. Those walls protect his direction. Freedom without structure dissolves into chaos. Structure without clarity becomes prison. The balance comes from intentional placement. You decide where you stand. From there, behavior follows. People admire discipline while living in environments that sabotage it. They want results without restriction. They want clarity without silence. They want mastery without monotony. That combination never produces anything lasting. Discipline grows in boring places, quiet rooms, repetitive routines, uncelebrated hours. That boredom is not emptiness, it is preparation. It is the training ground where focus sharpens and identity solidifies. When your environment demands presence, presence becomes habit. When your environment tolerates drift, drift becomes character. You cannot outthink a hostile environment. You cannot negotiate with temptation endlessly. Eventually attention cracks. Eventually impulse wins. This is not a moral failure. This is physics. Inputs produce outputs. Change the inputs. Control the outputs. Remove the distractions that drain you. Remove the voices that dilute you. Remove the comforts that soften you. Discipline rises automatically when the surrounding world stops offering escape. Notice how disciplined you feel in certain places. In spaces that demand effort, you rise to meet the demand. In spaces that offer indulgence, restraint dissolves. That contrast tells the truth. Discipline lives in context. It thrives when supported. It fades when undermined. The disciplined man does not test himself daily. He respects his limits and designs around them. That respect builds longevity. This is not about becoming harsh. It is about becoming precise. You stop placing yourself in situations that ask you to fail. You stop entertaining spaces that weaken your edge. You curate your environment with the same care others reserve for comfort. That care becomes strength. That strength becomes consistency. Consistency becomes reputation. Reputation becomes influence. All of it starts with where you stand each day.